They placed the black maintenance worker in handcuffs before more than 300 investors, engineers, reporters, and company executives. Some people moved away from him as though guilt could spread through the air. Others raised their phones, eager to record the exact moment a poor man was publicly destroyed. At the center of the ballroom stood Claire Ashford, the billionaire owner of Ashford Energy, staring at the man she had once trusted with her life. Every document said Marcus Hale had stolen an $80 million invention and sabotaged a battery demonstration that could have killed hundreds. But as security dragged him toward the doors, a 9-year-old black girl pushed through the crowd, clutching a damaged blue notebook. "My father didn't steal your invention," she shouted. "Your company stole it from him." The room fell silent, and the secret hidden inside that notebook was about to destroy one of the most powerful men in Chicago. 4 months earlier, Marcus Hale arrived at Ashford Energy before sunrise, wearing faded work boots and a Navy maintenance uniform with his name stitched above the pocket. He was 34 years old, tall, broad-shouldered, and quieter than most people expected a man his size to be. Employees entering the glass tower walked around him without greeting him. To them, Marcus was not a man with dreams, talent, or responsibilities. He was simply the person who repaired broken doors, replaced burned-out lights, unclogged sinks, and cleaned up problems important people did not want to see. Marcus had once dreamed of becoming an electrical engineer. He studied at a community college before earning a scholarship to one of Illinois' best engineering programs. His professors said he understood electrical systems with an instinct that could not be taught. He could look at a circuit diagram once and remember every connection. He could listen to a damaged motor and identify the faulty part before opening it. During his 3rd year, he designed an early battery cooling system that impressed several instructors. His talent came partly from his father, Elijah, an electrician who taught him to respect every wire, every warning sign, and every worker whose hands kept a building alive. Elijah used to say that machines rarely failed without speaking first. The real danger began when proud people refused to listen. Marcus had never forgotten those words. Even after his father died under circumstances the Ashford family never discussed openly. Then his wife became sick. Maya Hale was 28 when doctors discovered an aggressive illness that had already spread through her body. Marcus left school during his final year to care for her and their young daughter, Nia. He worked construction during the day, repaired appliances at night, and slept in hospital chairs. He sold his car, emptied his savings, and accepted every job his body could survive. None of it saved her. Maya died on a rainy November morning while Marcus held one hand and 6-year-old Nia held the other. Her final words were not about pain or fear. She looked at Marcus and whispered, "Do not let this world make our daughter feel small." 3 years later, Nia was 9. She had her mother's warm brown eyes, stubborn confidence, and habit of asking questions until every adult surrendered. She also had a heart condition that required daily medicine and an operation Marcus could not afford. Their apartment was small, but Marcus kept it warm and orderly. Bills rested beneath a magnet on the refrigerator, each marked with a date and a promise he was not sure he could keep. Nia understood more than he wanted her to. She sometimes claimed she was not hungry so he would finish the last portion of dinner, and she counted her pills carefully because she knew every refill frightened him. Every morning, Marcus prepared her breakfast, checked her medicine, and attempted to braid her hair before leaving her with Mrs. Patterson, a retired teacher who lived downstairs. One Monday morning, Nia examined herself in the hallway mirror. "The left braid is thicker again," she said. "I gave it personality," Marcus replied. "You gave it less time. Speed is a personality." Nia tried to remain serious but smiled. Before Marcus left, she handed him a faded blue notebook held together by a rubber band. "You forgot your thinking book." The notebook contained years of diagrams, equations, and unfinished ideas. Its most important design was a cooling system that could move heat away from the center of large batteries before dangerous pressure developed. Marcus still worked on it after Nia fell asleep, because designing reminded him of the man he had once hoped to become. "One day I'll finish what's inside this book," he told her. Nia nodded confidently. "And I'll make sure nobody steals it." Marcus laughed and kissed her forehead. He had no idea how important that promise would become. Before leaving, Marcus always paused beside Maya's photograph. Some mornings he asked her silently whether he was doing enough. Other mornings he simply looked at Nia and remembered the answer Maya had already given him. Keep going, protect her, and never allow poverty to convince their daughter that she deserved less than anyone else. Ashford Energy occupied 47 floors in one of Chicago's most expensive business towers. The company was developing an emergency battery system intended to power hospitals, schools, and shelters during blackouts. Investors called it the future of clean energy. The company belonged to 32-year-old Claire Ashford. She had dark hair, serious gray eyes, and the controlled expression of someone taught never to reveal weakness. Her father, William Ashford, built the company before dying unexpectedly 2 years earlier. Claire inherited the business, enormous debts, and a board filled with older men who believed she was too emotional to lead it. The most powerful of those men was Victor Lang. Victor was the company's chief strategy officer and Claire's unofficial fiancé. Their families had discussed marriage for years, and business magazines described them as Chicago's future power couple. Claire had never accepted a proposal, but Victor behaved as though the decision had already been made. He was polished, intelligent, and cruel in ways that were difficult to prove. He rarely shouted when witnesses were nearby. He smiled while humiliating workers and called his insults jokes. That morning, Marcus was repairing an overheating display beside the executive elevators when Victor arrived with 2 international investors. Marcus had removed part of the marble panel and arranged his tools neatly on the floor. Victor stopped beside him. "Could someone remove this mess before our guests enter?" he asked loudly. Marcus looked up. "The display is overheating. I need 10 minutes to replace a damaged wire." Victor glanced at the investors. "Did the maintenance worker just give me a schedule?" One man laughed. "If I close the panel without replacing it, the wire could start a fire," Marcus said. Victor stepped closer. "Your job is to make the building look clean, not explain electricity to people who run an energy company." Marcus tightened his grip around the screwdriver but remained silent. Victor leaned down and lowered his voice. "Men like you keep jobs like this by being invisible. Remember that." Victor and the investors entered another elevator, still laughing. Marcus watched the doors close. Anger moved through him, but he forced it down. He had learned that anger was expensive. A wealthy man could lose his temper and be called powerful. A poor black man raised his voice once and became dangerous. That afternoon, Ashford Energy tested the newest version of its emergency battery on the 39th floor. Marcus was sent to repair an air conditioning vent outside the laboratory. Through the glass wall, he saw engineers gathered around a silver battery unit while graphs moved across several screens. One temperature graph caught his attention. The battery produced small waves of heat at irregular intervals. The engineers appeared unconcerned, but Marcus recognized the pattern immediately. Thermal echo. Heat was becoming trapped inside the center cells, then escaping outward in delayed waves. The outside sensors displayed safe temperatures, but the battery's core could already be dangerously unstable. A short test might appear successful. A longer test could cause a fire. Marcus approached the laboratory door. A young engineer opened it only a few inches. "Can I help you? Your internal temperature is rising faster than the exterior sensors are showing," Marcus said. The engineer frowned. "This is a restricted test. The center cells could be 15 degrees hotter than the display." Another engineer looked over. "Thanks. We'll call maintenance when we need help understanding our own battery." Several people laughed, and the door closed in Marcus's face. He could have walked away. Nobody would blame a maintenance worker for a problem trained engineers refused to acknowledge. Then Marcus remembered the machines beside Maya's hospital bed and the fear he felt whenever the lights flickered during a storm. That evening, he wrote a warning explaining the heat pattern and placed it beneath the laboratory director's office door. He did not sign it. He wanted no attention. He only wanted someone to investigate before people were hurt. The note never reached the director. Victor found it first. He read the explanation twice and placed the paper inside his coat. The following morning, Victor ordered engineers to perform a deeper thermal scan. They discovered that the battery's center cells were 18 degrees hotter than expected. The test was immediately canceled. Victor accepted praise from the board for recognizing the danger. Marcus watched from the hallway as executives congratulated him. He said nothing. 3 nights later, a violent storm covered Chicago. Wind pushed rain against the tower's glass walls, and lightning flashed above the city. Most employees left early, but Marcus remained because several elevators and electrical panels had begun malfunctioning. At 9:15, the building lost power. Emergency generators activated, but one executive elevator stopped between the 36th and 37th floors. Marcus heard the alarm through his radio. "There's one person inside," the security supervisor said. "The elevator company says it could take 40 minutes. "Who is trapped?" Marcus asked. The supervisor hesitated. "Claire Ashford." Inside the elevator, Claire stood beneath a weak emergency light. She pressed the call button repeatedly, but the speaker produced only static. The air seemed to disappear around her. Claire had been terrified of enclosed spaces since she was 16. An electrical fire trapped her and her 12-year-old brother Daniel inside a storage room at one of her father's factories. Claire survived. Daniel did not. The elevator lights flickered. Claire slid down the wall and closed her eyes. She negotiated with senators, dismissed executives twice her age, and confronted hostile investors without trembling. But inside that metal box she was 16 again, listening to her brother cry through smoke. A voice came through the ceiling. "Ms. Ashford, my name is Marcus. I'm with building maintenance." "Can you hear me?" Claire forced herself to answer. "Yes. I'm opening the doors from the floor above. You're safe, but I need you to stay away from the elevator doors. I can't breathe." Marcus recognized the panic in her voice. "You can breathe," he said calmly. "The fear is telling you that you can't, but the fear is lying. Put both feet on the floor and tell me 5 things you can see." "What?" "5 things, anything." Claire looked around. A silver button, a black line. "My shoe, the emergency light, my briefcase." "Good. Keep listening to my voice." Marcus opened the outer elevator doors from the floor above. The car had stopped nearly 6 feet below him. He secured a harness around his waist and lowered himself into the shaft. The emergency release was damaged. Opening it required reaching beneath a metal bracket while the car remained suspended. "Marcus," Claire called after hearing machinery. "Is it safe?" He looked at the cable beside his face. "It will be." It was not a complete answer. The elevator shifted while Marcus worked, sending a violent tremor through the shaft. Claire screamed and grabbed the wall. Marcus's shoulder struck the metal frame, but he kept his voice steady because he knew panic would spread faster than any mechanical failure. "Look at me," he told her. "Not the gap, not the cables, just me." Claire obeyed, and for those few seconds his face became the only safe place inside the darkness. He loosened the bracket and forced the elevator door open several inches. Claire saw his hands appear first, followed by his face. Marcus extended one arm. "I need you to trust me." Claire stared at the gap between the car and the floor. "What if I fall?" "I won't let you." Something in his voice made the promise feel stronger than the machinery around them. Claire reached for him. Marcus held her wrist, guided her onto a ladder, and lifted her through the opening. When she reached the floor, she collapsed against the wall, shaking. Victor and several security officers were waiting nearby. Victor rushed forward, but Claire barely noticed him. Her eyes remained on Marcus as he climbed from the shaft. His right hand was bleeding. "You're injured," she said. "It's only a cut. You could have waited for the elevator company. You needed help now." Victor stepped between them. "Maintenance should have prevented this failure." Claire stared at him. "He just risked his life to save me. It's what we pay him for." Claire noticed the expression on Marcus's face. It was not anger. It was the tired acceptance of a man who had heard words like that too many times. "What is your full name?" she asked. "Marcus Hale." "Thank you, Mr. Hale." The following morning, Claire requested Marcus's employment file. She learned that he had worked at Ashford Energy for 18 months without a single complaint. He arrived early, accepted additional shifts, and repaired machines outside contractors said needed replacement. She also discovered that he had studied electrical engineering. The file also showed that Marcus had twice applied for technical positions, only to be rejected for lacking corporate experience. Claire learned that Victor had approved both rejections, and the pattern made her uneasy. Later that day, Claire found Marcus repairing a valve in the basement. "Did you see the battery test on Monday?" she asked. "I was repairing a vent nearby. Did you notice a problem?" Marcus stopped working. "Why are you asking me? Someone warned us about heat building inside the center cells. Did your engineers investigate it?" "Yes." "Then the warning helped. You wrote it." Marcus did not deny it. "Why didn't you sign your name?" Claire asked. "Would they have listened if I had?" The question embarrassed her because they both knew the answer. "You could have brought it to me. I had never met you. You knew who I was." Knowing someone's name isn't the same as knowing whether they will listen. Claire noticed the blue notebook lying on his toolbox. Several visible pages contained complex diagrams. "What are those?" Marcus closed it. "Personal work. Energy storage. Something like that. May I see it?" "No," Claire blinked. Very few employees refused her directly. "No disrespect, Ms. Ashford, but those ideas belong to me," Marcus said. Claire remembered Victor accepting praise for Marcus's warning. "I'm creating an independent battery safety team," she said. "I want you on it." Marcus almost laughed. "As what?" "The person who repairs the lights during meetings. As a technical consultant. I don't have a degree. You notice something my engineers missed. Your board won't approve it. I own the company." Marcus looked around the basement. "Owning the building doesn't mean every room inside it belongs to you." He picked up his toolbox. "Thank you for the offer, but my daughter is waiting for me." The next afternoon, Claire saw Marcus at a pharmacy with Nia. His insurance had rejected the child's heart medicine, and he was asking to pay in parts. Claire offered to cover it, but Marcus refused. "Buying my daughter's medicine won't make us equal," he told her. When she asked what would, he answered, "An opportunity, not charity." The following morning, Claire offered him a temporary consulting position on the battery safety team, with equal pay and written protection for his personal designs. Her note at the bottom read, "You asked for an opportunity. What you do with it belongs to you." Marcus accepted. His first day in the laboratory was humiliating. Engineers stared at his maintenance uniform and questioned whether he understood their software. Marcus quietly corrected 2 calculation errors and reran the thermal model in minutes, leaving the room silent. Victor arrived and demanded to know why maintenance was inside a restricted laboratory. Claire defended the appointment, while Marcus pointed out another flaw in the airflow model. When Victor claimed credit for discovering the original heat problem, Marcus understood that he had stolen the anonymous warning, and Victor understood that Marcus knew. Over the following weeks, Marcus became impossible to ignore. He identified a wiring defect responsible for 3 shutdowns. He redesigned a cooling vent using inexpensive parts. He stayed late to help younger engineers without taking credit for their work. Slowly, suspicion became respect. A younger engineer named Daniel Cho began staying late to study Marcus's notes. He admitted that he had laughed when Marcus first entered the laboratory. Marcus could have embarrassed him, but instead he explained the calculations again and showed him where the original team had gone wrong. That quiet generosity changed the atmosphere more effectively than any order Claire could have issued. Soon, workers who once ignored Marcus began asking for his opinion before finalizing their tests. Claire began attending safety meetings more often. At first, she told herself it was necessary because the launch was approaching. Soon, she realized she looked forward to hearing Marcus speak. He never tried to impress the room. He waited until everyone finished, then asked the one question nobody had considered. Claire began eating lunch with Marcus in the laboratory. His honesty made her laugh in ways employees had rarely seen, and she found herself feeling less like an heiress and more like an ordinary woman. Marcus, meanwhile, began trusting her because she listened when he spoke instead of waiting for him to become useful. One Saturday, Marcus brought Nia to work. The girl showed Claire a drawing of a city powered by batteries and announced that her father believed energy should help poor communities too. Then, with the fearless honesty of a child, she asked Claire whether she liked him. Claire answered that she respected Marcus very much. Nia smiled and said, "That means yes in rich person language." That afternoon, Nia collapsed. At the hospital, doctors warned that her heart operation could no longer be delayed. Claire offered Marcus a permanent engineering position whose medical plan would cover the procedure. He feared she was promoting him out of pity, but they agreed that part of his salary would repay the medical advance. Nia's surgery was scheduled, and Marcus accepted the role without surrendering his dignity. The night before the operation, Nia asked Marcus whether people could die from being afraid. He sat beside her hospital bed and admitted that courage did not mean fear disappeared. It meant choosing whom to trust while fear was still present. Nia looked toward Claire sleeping in a chair near the window and asked whether Marcus trusted her. He watched Claire for a long moment before answering, "I'm trying to." Victor saw Marcus's growing influence and understood it as a threat. He had spent years positioning himself to control Ashford Energy. The board respected him, and investors believed he would eventually marry Claire. At first, Victor saw Marcus as a maintenance worker Claire would forget after her gratitude faded, but she did not forget him. She promoted him, listened to him, and smiled whenever he entered a room. Worse, Marcus was beginning to understand the battery system. Victor had hidden serious problems inside the project's financial records. He approved cheaper internal materials while charging investors for premium components. The difference was transferred through companies he secretly controlled. If the battery launched successfully, Victor would make millions. If it failed, Claire would take the blame. Marcus was intelligent enough to uncover both the technical defect and the financial reason behind it. One evening, Marcus finally showed Claire the blue notebook. His cooling system used narrow channels to pull heat from a battery center without wasting power. Claire immediately understood that it could solve Ashford Energy's greatest problem. Marcus agreed to develop it only if he kept ownership. Hospitals and shelters received affordable licenses, and part of the profits funded students forced to abandon education because of poverty or family emergencies. Claire accepted his terms and called them partners. Neither noticed Victor watching from the dark hallway. Victor remained there long enough to hear Claire praise the design as the breakthrough that could save the company. He watched Marcus close the notebook and saw the ease with which Claire touched his arm. In that moment, Victor's jealousy and greed became the same thing. Marcus was no longer merely an employee standing in his way. He was the man holding the invention, the woman, and the future Victor believed belonged to him. Victor investigated Marcus and found debts, an incomplete degree, and an old arrest that had been dismissed after witnesses confirmed Marcus was defending Maya. Victor warned Claire that the press would portray Marcus as unstable, then accused her of falling in love with him. Claire finally told Victor there had never been a promised marriage between them, and that fear was not loyalty. That evening, Claire visited Marcus's apartment. She saw Maya's photographs and admitted that her younger brother Daniel had died in a factory fire when she was 16. Marcus understood the guilt she carried because he had carried his own since Maya's death. He did not offer empty comfort. He simply remained beside her until she stopped crying. Their first kiss happened quietly in the small apartment while rain touched the windows. Over the following weeks, they kept the relationship private. Nia's surgery succeeded, and Claire stood beside Marcus when years of fear finally broke into relieved tears. Victor watched their happiness from a distance. Then he made his move. During Nia's recovery, Marcus kept his blue notebook inside a locked laboratory cabinet. Victor entered the room after midnight, opened the cabinet with a security key, and photographed every page. The following morning, he instructed the legal department to file an emergency patent under Ashford Energy's name. He claimed the cooling design was created by the executive engineering team. Victor then modified the battery prototype. He installed Marcus's design but secretly disabled two safety controls. During the upcoming investor demonstration, the battery would overheat. Digital records would show Marcus access the system shortly before the failure. Victor would blame him for stealing company information and sabotaging the project after a disagreement over ownership. The scandal would remove Marcus, weaken Claire, and place Victor in control. To strengthen the trap, Victor used Claire's electronic signature to approve the patent filing and ordered a contractor to copy Marcus's access card. He also instructed a public relations firm to prepare a background file describing Marcus as unstable. The headlines had been written before the battery ever caught fire. Victor was not planning only to defeat Marcus. He intended to decide how the entire world would remember him. Before the investor demonstration, Claire brought Marcus to a board dinner intending to introduce him as the cooling system's creator. Victor mocked his maintenance background and suggested that a personal relationship had earned his promotion. Marcus publicly accused Victor of stealing the anonymous warning, but he had no proof, and Victor used that silence to humiliate him. Outside, Marcus told Claire he did not want to spend his life being defended as though he needed permission to stand beside her. "You can leave those rooms whenever you want," he said. "I must prove I deserve to enter them every day." Claire asked him to trust her long enough to change the room, but the wound remained between them. 3 days later, hundreds gathered for the battery demonstration. Marcus discovered that 2 shutdown controls had been disabled. Victor claimed digital records showed Marcus had accessed them, but Claire ordered the test delayed. Before technicians could act, the battery activated remotely and began overheating. Smoke filled the laboratory. Marcus evacuated the guests, shielded Claire and an injured technician from an exploding panel, then manually opened the emergency coolant line. The battery stabilized, but a bursting pipe struck his shoulder and knocked him unconscious. Even while lying half-conscious on the laboratory floor, Marcus tried to warn firefighters about the remaining pressure inside the rear cells. Claire knelt beside him and begged him to stop talking, but he refused until the final gauge dropped into the safe range. The same guests who had questioned why a maintenance worker was allowed near the project escaped, because that maintenance worker understood the system better than anyone in the room. Marcus awoke in an ambulance as police arrived. Victor produced a company patent for Marcus's design and an encrypted drive planted inside his locker. Marcus's blue notebook had disappeared. Every piece of evidence made him look like a thief and saboteur. Claire asked him to say he was innocent. Marcus did, then asked whether she believed him. Her hesitation lasted only seconds, but it was enough. As officers placed him in handcuffs, he said, "The moment they called me dangerous, you saw exactly what they wanted you to see." News outlets portrayed Marcus as an unstable maintenance worker who had manipulated a billionaire. At home, Nia refused to believe the lies. Searching his spare work bag, she found an old tablet containing videos of Marcus testing the cooling design 6 years earlier while Maya recorded him. A second accidental recording from Nia's visit to the laboratory showed Victor unlocking Marcus's cabinet, stealing the blue notebook, and photographing every page. At the same time, Claire's private forensic team discovered that Marcus's identification had been copied from Victor's terminal, and that the planted drive came from one of Victor's contractors. Victor called an emergency shareholders meeting to remove Claire as chief executive. More than 300 investors, reporters, and employees watched Marcus enter the ballroom in handcuffs, while Victor described him as an unstable worker who had stolen company technology. When security began dragging Marcus away, the ballroom doors opened. Nia ran inside holding the blue notebook and the tablet. "My father didn't steal your invention," she shouted. "Your company stole it from him." Claire played the videos on the ballroom screen. The first proved Marcus had created the design years before Ashford Energy's patent. The second showed Victor stealing the notebook. The company's security director confirmed that neither recording had been edited. On the screen, Maya's voice filled the ballroom again, calling Marcus a future inventor while he smiled at the kitchen table. The image transformed him from the criminal Victor had described into a husband, father, and creator whose life existed long before Ashford Energy noticed him. Several employees lowered their phones. A few engineers who had mocked him openly began to cry. Claire then revealed the forensic findings. Victor had copied Marcus's access card, planted the drive, approved inferior battery materials, and redirected more than $12 million through companies he controlled. Police blocked the exits as Victor tried to escape. Victor shouted that the company needed him, but Claire answered, "A company that survives by stealing from men like Marcus deserves to collapse." Officers removed Marcus's handcuffs and arrested Victor. Claire apologized, but Marcus told her that an apology inside a ballroom was not enough. She had to repair the company that had made Victor's plan possible. Marcus then turned toward the board members who had applauded Victor. He did not shout or demand that they kneel before him. He simply asked how many other workers had been ignored because their uniforms looked wrong, their education was incomplete, or their voices made powerful people uncomfortable. Nobody answered. For the first time, the silence inside the ballroom belonged to those who had caused the harm. The charges against Marcus were dismissed. Victor and his accomplices faced fraud, theft, evidence tampering, and reckless endangerment charges. Marcus stayed home with Nia for 2 weeks while deciding whether he could ever return. Claire did not send gifts or use reporters to win him back. She ordered an independent discrimination investigation, removed executives who had blocked qualified workers, and created technical apprenticeships for maintenance and factory staff. Ashford Energy withdrew its patent claim and publicly recognized Marcus as the cooling system's sole inventor. Marcus eventually returned as the founder of Hale Emergency Systems and Ashford Energy's equal partner. On his first day, he noticed a young black maintenance worker watching from the hallway. Marcus invited him inside and asked whether he wanted to learn about batteries. When the young man said yes, Marcus answered, then stopped standing in the hallway. Marcus later created a program allowing employees to present ideas without revealing their names, job titles, ages, or educational backgrounds during the first review. He wanted designs judged before the designer's status could influence the room. Within 6 months, several of the company's strongest improvements came from cleaners, drivers, assistants, and factory technicians who had never previously been invited to speak. Claire later found Marcus on the tower roof. She told him that the board had approved affordable installations for South Side hospitals. Marcus appreciated the changes, but admitted that her hesitation during his arrest had hurt more than the handcuffs. Claire accepted his judgment without defending herself. Then Marcus revealed why he had first taken the maintenance job. His father, Elijah Hale, had been an electrician at the Ashford factory where Claire's brother died. Elijah warned management about the dangerous panel, rescued Claire during the fire, and died after returning for Daniel. Ashford executives later blamed him to protect the company. Claire was horrified. For 16 years, Marcus's family had carried shame that belonged to hers. When she asked what he wanted, Marcus gave one answer: tell the truth. Claire asked whether exposing the past would ever make him trust her again. Marcus told her the confession could not be used as payment for forgiveness. Elijah deserved the truth whether Marcus returned to her or not. Claire finally understood. Doing the right thing only when it purchased love would be another form of selfishness, so she promised to speak even if the truth cost her both Marcus and the company. 1 month later, Claire held a press conference at the old factory. She released Elijah's recovered safety report and admitted that her family's company had ignored his warning and destroyed his name. She renamed the new battery system the Elijah Hale Power Network, created a compensation fund for affected families, and opened a free technical training center for underserved workers. Claire also removed her father's portrait from the company's main lobby and placed Elijah's recovered warning beside it. The display did not erase William Ashford's achievements, but it refused to hide the life his decisions had destroyed. Employees entering the building now saw both men and read the lesson the company had ignored for years. Leadership without accountability was only power protecting itself. Nia held Marcus's hand as the crowd applauded Elijah's photograph. "Grandpa was a hero," she whispered. Marcus looked at the image and answered, "He always was." Trust between Marcus and Claire returned slowly through ordinary choices. She attended Nia's school events without cameras, and Marcus challenged her decisions in board meetings without fear. They learned that love was not proven by never failing. It was proven by what people did after failure. A year later, the Elijah Hale Power Network kept 12 hospitals and dozens of shelters operating during a brutal winter blackout. Marcus watched the news at home with Nia when Claire arrived carrying pizza. There were no investors or photographers. Only 3 people watching lights remain on because the world had finally listened to an idea once hidden inside a maintenance worker's notebook. 6 months later, Marcus proposed to Claire on the tower roof with a ring tied inside the blue notebook. He told her he did not want a perfect life, only an honest one. Claire accepted, and Nia immediately announced that she had helped select the ring. Marcus told Claire that the blue notebook would remain part of their home rather than becoming a museum piece inside the company. It represented more than an invention. It held Maya's handwriting, Nia's drawings, Elijah's lessons, and the years Marcus continued working when success seemed impossible. Claire promised that nothing belonging to him would ever again be treated as though power had the right to claim it. They married the following spring inside the Elijah Hale Technical Training Center. Before the ceremony, Marcus touched Maya's photograph and whispered, "I kept my promise." The world didn't make her small. During the vows, Claire thanked Marcus for pulling her from the elevator but said his greater gift was forcing her to see the people her company had trained her to overlook. Marcus answered that Claire had not rescued him from poverty. She had stood beside him while he reclaimed a future he had almost stopped believing he deserved. Nia held the rings between them, smiling through tears she insisted were caused by dust. Years earlier, employees passed Marcus in the lobby without learning his name. Executives laughed when he warned them, and a powerful man believed the ideas of a black maintenance worker could be stolen without consequence. But Marcus Hale had never been invisible. He was a father who sacrificed his future for his daughter, an inventor who kept designing when nobody believed in him, and the son of a hero whose truth waited 16 years to be heard. In the end, the maintenance worker they called a thief transformed the company that tried to silence him, restored his father's name, and protected thousands of lives. He showed an entire city that brilliance does not always arrive wearing an expensive suit. Sometimes it carries a toolbox. Sometimes it works after midnight. And sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the one powerful people should fear most. That day, the voice belonged to a 9-year-old black girl holding her father's blue notebook.